Kick off with an initial question, and that is, during times of recession uncertainty, our employees might feel concerned about their personal investments, purchasing power, and most relevant to us as leaders, their livelihoods and ability to continue the work that they are doing at our company. How does observing other companies making layoffs impact your employees?
I think it's hard, right? It is a distraction for people to have that on their minds. And I think when people start to have fear, they lose some of the love and joy that they might have in their job and in their day-to-day. And they might have they lose their creativity. And even worse, they lose the willingness to take risks, right? To take a risk out there and do something because they're like, oh my gosh, if I make a mistake, what if I'm like the next on the layoff list? I think that uncertainty, and we've certainly gone through a lot of uncertainty as of late, you need to exhibit different leadership skills. First, for me, I really think it's important that you're just authentic. You can't always say exactly what's going on, but I think you have to own it. You have to tell your teams what's happening. You have to have a conversation about it. You have to connect with people, which I think is the second. So connecting with individuals, seeing how they're feeling, seeing what's on their mind. And third, provide a little bit of inspiration, right? How are we going to get through it? What are we going to do together? It is hard. So I definitely think be authentic. Definitely connect with the teams, and then figure out what is the goals at the end of the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for the teams.
That's great, Alex. What do you?
Honestly, I haven't heard much chatter around our office, and it's got me wondering because I'm old enough that I have been through some hard times in the past, and I remember a lot more fear and a lot more chatter. And I'd like to think it's because we do have a better culture than the companies I was working with at that time, but I think there's also some generational differences at play, meaning I think that people are have more options in terms of ability to make money and therefore feel less threatened by job insecurity. So I think the gig economy is transforming how people feel about job security. I think mobility and remote work is transforming how people feel about job security. And I also think that younger people tend to feel less attached to their career as their identity, and so are just less fearful of losing their job. So that financial insecurity component, that psychological component, I'm curious to know more and learn more about younger generations and how they're impacted by these kind of macro conditions from what I'm experienced in the past.
So the obvious thing is that the impact is negative, right? It's everywhere, so there's always going to be some sort of negative impact. I think the most important part is to recognize that what I've done in the past is say, hey, first of all, the worries you have are the same as the ones I have. I'm worried as well because there is always that basic instinct to survive, right? And so meeting at that point and saying, hey, it's okay for you to feel this way, but here are the things, here are the facts on the ground. And so what I've done is, okay, not divulge too much, because sometimes you can't really divulge everything, but you can say, for example, you're this important because you are assigned to this number of projects that are long-term projects, are not going anywhere. So obviously, you're not going anywhere. Just do your work as usual. The company has a plan to manage what's happening right now, and you'll be fine, right? Obviously, in real life, that's a little bit more difficult, easier said than done, but that's the first thing. I think also being vulnerable with your employees is important, because as a boss or as an executive or as somebody in leadership, some people will think, hey, you have this facade that you have to put on that, hey, I am, I'm well put together. But everyone has their days, right? And so just saying, hey, sometimes things might go haywire, and I understand, and everything is going to be fine. Communicating effectively and often is also another factor that's helped me in the past. Those touch points. So let's say, if there is a cadence for meeting a certain amount of times a week or a month or whatever, increase those so that they know that, hey, my boss or my manager really cares about my well-being. You have to be able to exude and show that they're valuable people and employees to you. That's not just a number on the spreadsheet, they're actual people. And once you make that connection, you have that trust, then I think that helps. So that's what I would say.
That's really interesting. And I love that you bring up the vulnerability element of it, because I think there's some real difficult decisions that unfortunately some businesses are going to have to make. Like obviously Pilar, you brought up this notion of safety and can we be safe at work? And Alex, you mentioned that, I don't really hear much about this topic of recession at my company. And perhaps your businesses are doing really, really well right now, but there could be some businesses right now that are struggling. And perhaps there needs to be some vulnerable conversations. Because I think oftentimes as employees, if we're in a business that might be impacted by the recession, the unknown of what we create in our mind is far worse oftentimes than the actual reality of what the worst case situation is. But if our leader won't be upfront with us about what that worst case scenario is, we can make up the unfathomable amount of pain or suffering in our own world because we can't even imagine what that, challenge could be. So